Time flows on. Nothing stays the same. While there is time, worship God. Worship God. Dawn. This is the holy hour of the Hindu. It is the time for meditation, prayer. Swami Gambhirananda, the 11th president of the Ramakrishna Math and Mission, was in the habit of walking every morning from temple to temple. He always saluted God first, and only then he dealt with his other responsibilities. Belur Math, the Ramakrishna Order's headquarters, is situated on the western bank of the Ganges, about 5 miles north of Calcutta. Belur Math is a peaceful place, and without any effort, one's mind is naturally elevated to a spiritual plane. Sri Ramakrishna, the God-man of India, who lived in Bengal from 1836 to 1886, is the central focus of the Math. Thousands of pilgrims visit his temple daily for prayer and meditation. They offer their worship before Sri Ramakrishna's life-size image, carved in white Italian marble. This is Sri Sarada Devi's temple, where her body was cremated in 1920. She was Sri Ramakrishna's wife and spiritual consort. Among her devotees, she's simply known and loved as the Holy Mother. North of Holy Mother's temple is Swami Brahmananda's temple. He was the spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna and the first president of the order. South of the Holy Mother's temple is Swami Vivekananda's temple. Swami Vivekananda, the main disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, established the Belur Monastery in 1898. It was Swamiji who carried the message of Vedanta to the West, inspiring thousands of people in Europe and America. Swami Vivekananda was also a pioneer in the regeneration of India. He died in 1902, and his body was cremated here. The president's residence is south of Swami Vivekananda's temple. Swami Gambirananda returns to his quarters. A few years ago, Swami Gambirananda said to a monk, "I feel I'm moving toward the house of death." After a pause, he corrected himself, saying, "No, I'm not. Why should I? Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman, immortal, one without a second." There is no death for the knower of God. There is no death for the knower of God. Swami Gambirananda suddenly and unexpectedly died in the evening on December 27, 1988. Monks and brahmacharis chant Vedic hymns and the name of Sri Ramakrishna. The holy name of God will accompany the departing soul, for they say hearing is the last sense that departs the body. When I closed his eyes, I noticed their brilliant color, said one of Swami Gambirananda's attendants. I shall never forget how bright they were. The last thought before death is the seed of the next life. How difficult it is to cross the ocean of Maya. The boat of a mind steeped in worldliness sinks and never makes it to the other side. Therefore, while there is time, worship God. Worship God. Monks are applying alta, a red dye, to Swami Gambirananda's holy feet. Footprints taken will then be distributed among Swami's disciples and followers. In the early morning hours, Swami Gambirananda's face glows, emanating a mystical light. He looks as if he were just sleeping. What happens after death? Swami Bhuteshananda explains.
You asked me the question, what happens when a sadhu dies? It's very difficult for me to answer the question because sadhus die in different conditions. Sometimes he loses his consciousness for some time. Sometimes he remains conscious and talks about God or things spiritual. But whatever be his mental condition outwardly, a sadhu is expected to have that inner consciousness, and his thought of God does not leave him right up to the end. When the outward consciousness leaves, he still remains alive to the field which he occupied during the whole life. That is, the last thought comes from the habit of thinking, the way of life he had been living.
The last thought is in God. Keep your mind in God. Nobody knows when death will come. The news of Swami Gambirananda's passing away spread quickly. Newspapers, radio, and television brought the sad news to monks, lay disciples, and devotees all over India and the world. Thousands of people pour into Belur Math to pay their homage to the great president. It is morning now. Monks and brahmacharins have been chanting Vedic hymns without a break throughout the night. Outside the building are long lines. People with solemn faces wait patiently for their turn to bow at the feet of Swami Gambirananda for the last time, to offer a flower, a prayer, their love. Swami Gambirananda's room is quiet now. It looks as if he has just left, soon to return. Where has he gone? where am I going? Where do I come from, and who am I? The whole mystery of Vedanta lies in the answers to these questions. By noon, Swami Gambirananda's body is placed into the courtyard of the Mott compound so that the thousands of people waiting may pay their last homage to the great monk. Before the body is burned on the pyre, Hindus worship and serve the deceased as if he were alive. This worshipful participation in the death experience makes death appear less grim and human life more dignified. Swami Gambirananda's dead body is carried from temple to temple. He salutes, as it were, for the last time, the images of God he worshipped throughout his life. Monks give the holy body of Swami Gambirananda a bath in the Ganga in front of Holy Mother's temple. Swami Gambirananda's body is carried to the funeral pyre for his final rest. Witnesses to the event, shocked, saddened, contemplate their own mortality. All must die one day, yet, although people see death around them all the time, they live as if they will never have to die. While there is time, worship God. Worship God. A mind merged in God during one's lifetime is merged in God at death. The body only, a mere cast-off garment, burns in the flames. Swami Gambirananda lived the life of a true holy man. He was born on February 11, 1899 in Sylhet, a village now located in Bangladesh. His well-to-do parents sent him to the University of Calcutta, from which he graduated with honors. After a short employment with the military in Rangoon, Burma, he went to Varanasi, the city of light and spiritual culture. He hoped to become a monk of the Ramakrishna Order.
When I reached Varanasi, unfortunately it was summer, so the Swami was out, he was not there. And the Ashram people said, no, we can't take you. Your place is the Shivaswarupananda there. All right. I went to the Shivaswarupananda. Swami Kalikananda was in charge. I said, sir, I want to be a monk of the Ramakrishna Order. Please take me in. He said, no, we don't take unknown people. You rather go to Belur. I said, well, it's nice way. I'm put in a fix now what to do. So I thought internally and then expressed to him, sir, at least write down that I came to Varanasi for becoming a monk. And with that letter, I shall go to Belur. Kindly wrote in a slip of paper that this boy came here, but we could not take him in because he was unknown to us, so we sent him to Belur. I came to Belur, met Swami Shuddhananda ji, and said, well, we don't take unknown people, and if we take you to Mahapurush Maharaj Swami Shivananda ji, he will at once drive you away. My goodness, what was I to do? So I came to the old shrine, sat on the veranda in front of Thakur, sadly and praying to him to help me out of this difficulty. Swami Shashadhar Maharaj was then the worshipper. He understood my position, came out and said solacingly, well, everything will be all right, don't worry. I found a oasis in the desert, as it were, but I did not know how Shashadhar Maharaj would help me out of this difficulty. Fortunately for me, that day at Belur were present Swami Nirvedananda and Swami Sadbhavananda, both associated with the Ramakrishna Mission Vidyapit at Devgarh. They consulted among themselves and with Swami Shuddhananda ji also, and Swami Nirvedananda said to me, come along with me, I shall find a way out for you.
After a thorough examination, Swami Gambirananda was accepted by the Ramakrishna Order as a teacher at the Deokar Vidyapit.
He came from Burma, but he was unknown person at Belur. And unknown persons were not allowed to stay in Belur. So he was asked to go to some Nirvedananda of our Calcutta students, Ramakrishna Mission students from Calcutta. And he went to him in Calcutta. And Nirvedananda told him, just you see, we have started a Vidyapit, a school at Mihijam in Southern Pargana in Bihar. If you like, you may go there and I may provide you here. And he agreed, and he agreed, and he went there. And I saw him there when the Vidyapit was transferred from your, what is called, Mihijam to Deo.
Swami Gambirananda had a strong desire to receive initiation and monastic vows from Swami Shivananda, whom people mostly referred to as Mahapurush Maharaj, the Great Soul.
I wrote to Mahapurush ji that I wanted Diksha from him and also Brahmacharya. Mind you, I came in 1923, summer, and in that very year I prayed for Brahmacharya. In return, Mahapurush ji, kind as he was, wrote back that I would get my Diksha and also Brahmacharya during the birthday of Holy Mother in 1923. So I showed the letter to Swami Sadbhavananda, my head, he became a little irritated that over his head I had written to Mahapurushji. At the same time, he could not ignore the order of Mahapurushji, so he allowed me to come to Belur Math. I had my brahmacharya in 1923 on the Holy Mother's birthday, along with Mati Maharaj, Swami Bhuteshananda, and Swami Dwaraka Maharaj, now no longer with us, and some others, I forget their names. There was also another brahmachari who after brahmacharya went for tapasya to Rishikesh, and during the flood that ensued, he was washed away. Anyway, so I got my brahmacharya on that day. The Diksha came on Mahapurushji's birthday, a few days later. And Moti Maharaj also says, I don't remember though, that he also got his brahmacharya along with us on that day, and on Mahapurushji's birthday, he also got his initiation. I did not speak anything about the delay in the Diksha, but Moti Maharaj did so. He told Mahapurushji, how can there be brahmacharya before Diksha? He said, it doesn't matter. In fact, Mahapurushji did not care much for formalities. He cared more for the spirit, the attitude of the man concerned. He was concerned with sincerity and not with formalities.
1923, we took brahmacharya in the at a time. And then afterwards, after 4 days, we took initiation from August both. And 27 and 28 in Sannyasa, Banaras.
To reach liberation, Hindus say, one needs 3 things, all difficult to attain. 1, a human body. 2, burning desire for God, for liberation. And 3, the company of the holy. Swami Gambirananda's life was blessed with holy company. He met many of Sri Ramakrishna's monastic and householder disciples. Their blessings were translated into action. Swami Gambirananda worked and studied untiringly. As a result, he became a renowned scholar, orator, and author of many books. He was very fond of the Advaita Ashrama, which was started by Swami Vivekananda in 1898 in Mayavati in the Himalayas. He was the president of the Advaita Ashrama from 1953 to 1963. Swami Gambirananda established the Advaita Ashrama building in Calcutta, which houses one of the biggest publication departments of the Ramakrishna Order.
So this whole building was built by Gambirananda Maharaj in 1961, and he had made his all go-down space for the publication department and all these things. So these are the Bengali books of Gambirananda Maharaj. This is the Upanishads Granthavali in 3 volumes, Yuganayak Vivekananda, that is Life of Swamiji in 3 volumes, and Ramakrishna Bhakta Malika, the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, and Shrima Sharda Devi by him, and this Tavakusumanjali. It is the collection of prayers and hymns on gods and goddesses. And then these English books, these are all the 8 Upanishads individual volumes with Shankara's commentaries translation, and 8 Upanishads as such is in 2 volumes, that is bound together, the same thing. And this is the Gita with the Shankara's commentary, and then comes the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, that last book. Then that is with the Shankara's commentary again. This one is the history of the Mutton Mission by him, then Holy Mother's Life in English, then Hindi, and the Chandogya Upanishads. So these are all the books which he has authored, either by translation and originals or collections, all these things put together.
I want to say a few words about Swami Gambhirananda Ji Maharaj. I joined at Advaita Ashram on 1st of December 1958 when he was the president of the Advaita Ashram. And I lived with him for 5 years in Advaita Ashrama and 2 years in Belur Math. I am indebted to him for his guidance in the beginning of my monastic life. Let me first tell you his routine in the ashrama, which was something unusual than we see in other people. He would get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock he would sit for meditation. Then at 6 o'clock he would clear his mail. Then he would read a little scripture. 6:30 we had breakfast, and at 7 o'clock he would give a class on the scriptures, half an hour. Then from 8 to 11 o'clock he would read, he would write, he would edit the books. Then 11 o'clock he would take his shower, and then he would sit for meditation. 12 o'clock we had lunch. After lunch he would read a little newspaper. Then he would go for rest at 1 o'clock. Between 1 to 2 he would take rest, and then 2 to 5 again he would work. In between at 4:30, 4 o'clock he would take a cup of tea. Then 5 to 6 he would go for work. His routine was so punctual that one could adjust one's watch seeing the Swami's movement. I still remember a scene what I saw in the very beginning of my monastic life. He was translating the reminiscences of Swami Vivekananda from Bengali to English, and he had terrible stomach pain. He put a hot water bag on his stomach, and he was in deep pain. So I went to his room and said to him, "Maharaj, why don't you take a little rest?" He said, "If I take rest, do you think my pain will go? By working for Swamiji, I am forgetting my pain." I got a great lesson in my life. I came to America in 1971. In 72, he came to Boston for eye operation. Then he came to Hollywood. I came with him at Trabuco. From Trabuco, he wanted to see Laguna Beach. So we brought him in Laguna. And while he was walking on the beach, a big wave came and wet his feet. So I said, "Maharaj, the Pacific Ocean took the dust of your feet." And he smiled. Then we had some extra socks which we changed, and he was very happy to come to Trabuco and Laguna.
When he was in his 40s, Swami Gambirananda became a trustee of the Ramakrishna Math and Mission. Then he became an assistant secretary. And when Swami Vireshwarananda was elected president in 1966, Swami Gambirananda became the general secretary and executive head of the order. He became vice president in 1979 and was elected president of the Ramakrishna Order in 1985. the unknown boy who was not allowed to join the order in Varanasi had come a long way.
How noble, how grateful he was. Once I met him at Kamarpukur Mount. And at Kamarpukur, when he was just coming back to Belur, he told me, do you remember you gave me some beads, mala, jopam, and you purchased and gave me that. He remembered that thing. He was so noble.
Gambirananda Swami is the one of the biggest Pandit, and then is sadhu, a very simple sadhu. Always, I never seen any good dress and all these things, only very simple. And it is very near friend, like in own brothers. So I went there and I sit in his bed and we talk. He took me the hands and I also took my right hand to touch the hair, chest, and last day also I went there 11 o'clock and I touched the hair, chest, and then afterwards I whole night.
Swami Gambirananda was like my own brother. I used to touch his chest. I could not sleep all night. Such a shock. We were together more than 67 years.
67 years we are artists to both.
When we were together, we worked together in the Belur Math in the office for administration. There we found that he was anxious to complete the task that had on his hand every day. He would not leave things aside if he could complete that during his working hour. Usually we have seen papers that remain to be attended every day. That is what he said. Sometimes I had to work in the evening. When he would come down and find me working in the office, he said, how much more will you work? You leave it and just have a relaxation. That's what he used to say. Be honest in his decisions and behavior. If anybody suggested anything which was just opposed to his idea, he would quietly think of that. And then if it is acceptable to him, he accepts. Otherwise, he sticks to his position. He is very thorough in his work that way and very impartial. The first suggest is intensely practical and always lived with that sort of idea that no injustice be done to anybody. And with all care, he will try to find out the facts and come to the decision. But once the decision is reached, he would not budge if others had different decisions, though he would listen to their viewpoint always. And we lived together in perfect harmony among us. Though he was the General Secretary, I was his assistant. He never treated me as such.
As president of a large order, Swami Gambirananda's daily schedule of activities was heavy, yet he never missed meditation and spiritual disciplines. One of his attendants once asked him, "Swami, what is your sadhana?" Swami Gambirananda replied, "Non-attachment." Krishna says in the 3rd verse of the 5th chapter of the Gita, "He who neither dislikes nor desires may be known as constantly practicing renunciation, for free from the pairs of opposites, O mighty Arjuna, he is easily freed from bondage." Swami Gambirananda practiced this verse all through his life, along with daily japam and meditation. Swami Gambirananda was rather stern and spoke little. He controlled his emotion and rarely related personal spiritual experiences. Yet, can a flower hide honey from the bees? Swami Atmasthananda tells the story when Swami Gambirananda saw God in the Amarnath cave high up in the Himalayas.
Amarnath sheep in the cave, and he returned to the Dandi where he was seated, well covered, and after making him seated, I went back to the cave. I did a little more puja and things, and then there all around the walls of the cave it is white, and you get a white powder-like thing which we call bhasma, and as you put your fingers on the walls it comes out. So I collected some of this holy bhasma, came down to Gambhir Maharaj, and I had put on his forehead like that, this bhasam. He asked me, "What is that?" I said, "Maharaj, this is Amarnath bhasma." Then I had a wonderful experience in hearing something from a man, from a person who is strikingly reticent to speak out his spiritual experiences. I found him emotionally highly charged, almost in tears and in sobbing tone. He told me, "Look, Satya Krishna, do you know what happened?" As I went to the cave, I saw Thakur seated. It was Thakur. He couldn't talk more. He was overcharged. So I touched him and said, "Maharaj, it is wonderful. You have seen Thakur. It's a great thing." And then I made pranam. That is one of the most precious memories that I have of Revered Gambhir Maharaj.
A young devotee once interviewed Swami Gambirananda and asked him if he had seen God. "Yes, I have seen Sri Ramakrishna," replied Swami Gambirananda loudly. "If you practice spiritual disciplines, you'll be able to see him too." Swami Gambirananda gave solace to many and serenely sat in the audience room at least twice a day to greet and bless enormous crowds of people. Swami Gambirananda's attendants witnessed a change in the Swami's mood during the last year of his life. He substantially increased his japam and spent much time withdrawn in a meditative mood. Worship God. Worship truth. If a person lives in truth, each word he says must come true, literally. In 1986, Swami Gambirananda's farewell to an American devotee was, "Don't worry, I shall not die. I shall wait until you come back." She returned to Belur Math on December 24th. "I shall take rest now," he said, and left for a checkup at the Order's hospital, never to return alive. "My blessings are always with you," said Swami Gambirananda to sincere devotees. Swami Gambirananda lives on in the memory of those who loved him. Swami Gambirananda's memorial service was held 13 days after his body had been cremated. Thousands of people thronged through the rooms that he used to occupy. They came to listen to the holy music, to the lectures, and most of all, to their own hearts, communing with the spirits that once occupied the body we call Swami Gambirananda.
Today noon, I was asking one of our monks, Somnath Maharaj, how is it that he hasn't shown himself as Sri Ramakrishna Ji? And he said, even when he was serving Kashishwarananda Maharaj, Bhuteshananda Maharaj, nothing of that kind happened. I mean, seeing them after their passing away. But some such incidents came to light much later. People seeing them in their dreams, or some signs from them, so to say, showing that their blessings were still on their disciples, on their sevaks. That gives a sense of courage. For some days we may feel grieved, naturally. Some of us have been associated with them for 11, 12 years. Some for 8 or 9 years, some for less. But that affection that he gave us all, that cannot be forgotten. Teaching us so many things silently, tidbits of monastic life, essentials of monastic life. Apparently he was so grave, less communicative. Still, those other senior monks who knew him closely, I said it was an external cover, so to say. Inside it was all great love and affection for us, and obviously for much more for Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Swami.
Time passes on, flowing like the Ganga. Although things change constantly, what is essential remains the same. Know this and worship God. Worship God. Cover everything with God. It's only the names and forms that change. Your relationship to mankind and nature continues eternally.